Chapter 1. The Broken Thread. The winter of 1903 did not arrive in Morley with a soft touch. It came with a blackened frost that clung to the gritstone of Cambridge Street like a shroud. Inside number 19, the air tasted of coal smoke and the metallic tang of a life lived too close to the earth. Lavinia Haigh leaned back against the kitchen table, her hand pressed firmly to the small of her back. She was 20 years old, but her joints carried the ache of a woman double her age, the mill fever that never truly left a piece's bones. Below her ribs, a new life stirred, insistent and heavy. "He's late again, Mother," Lavinia said, her voice barely rising above the whistle of the wind in the flue. Mary Haigh didn't look up from the hearth. She was a woman of 46 who looked 60, her skin mapped by the humid oil of the worsted mills. She was moving the kettle, her movements practiced and silent, an animal trying not to draw attention to itself in its own burrow. "The pit is a long walk in the slush, Viney," Mary replied, but her eyes flickered toward the heavy oak door. It wasn't the distance she feared, it was the gait of the man walking it. The sound came then, the scrape of a boot, uneven and dragging. George Haigh entered not as a man returning to his sanctuary, but as a stranger entering a hostile wood. He was 51, his face a landscape of deep-set lines and coal dust etched into the pores of his grizzled moustache. He didn't speak. He never spoke first anymore. He simply stood in the doorway, the cold air rolling off his heavy coat, his eyes darting to the corners of the ceiling as if watching a swarm of flies only he could see. "They're watching the chimney again," George thought, though his lips remained pressed into a white line. "They're whispering through the brickwork." He felt the old ache in his skull, the ghost of the fall from years ago. It was a physical weight, a stone lodged behind his eyes that throbbed in time with the flickering gaslight. "Tea's ready, George," Mary said softly. She stepped forward, reaching for his coat. He flinched, a violent, jerky motion that sent a chair scraping across the floor. Lavinia gasped, her hand flying to her stomach. "Don't you come near," George hissed. His voice was a dry rattle. "I saw them at the station. I saw the way they looked. You've been talking to them, haven't you? Telling them to come for me." "No one's coming, Father," Lavinia said, trying to keep her voice steady, the same way she handled a snapped thread on the spinning frame. "Piece it together. Keep the machine moving. Don't let the tension break. It's just us. Just the family." George's eyes landed on Lavinia's swollen belly. For a second, the madness flickered, replaced by a terrifying, hollow blankness. A new mouth, he thought. Another heart to beat against the quiet. I could snuff them all out. One puff of breath, and the candle goes dark. Nobody would know. The earth would just swallow them, same as the coal. "I'm going to bed," George muttered, his mouth twitching. "But keep the light low. You're signaling them with the glare." He climbed the stairs, each step a heavy thud that seemed to vibrate in Mary's teeth. When the floorboards groaned above them, Mary finally let out a breath, her shoulders sagging. She turned back to the fire, her fingers trembling as she picked up a poker to stir the embers. Lavinia watched her mother, the way the firelight caught the grey in her hair. She felt a sudden sharp kick from the child within. "He's getting worse, Mum," Lavinia whispered. "The drink. Even when he hasn't had a drop, the madness is there." Mary looked at the poker in her hand, then leaned it carefully back against the stone. "He's got a broken mind, Viney, and a broken mind is like a snagged bobbin. You can try to lead the thread straight, but eventually the whole thing knots." Lavinia looked at the door, then at her mother, then down at her own hands. She was a piecer. It was her job to mend what was broken, to tie the ends so the cloth remained whole. But as she heard her father pacing the floorboards above, to and fro, like a caged beast counting the bars, she felt a coldness that had nothing to do with the Yorkshire winter. The thread wasn't just snagging, it was fraying. And on the 19th of January, when her son, George Henry, was born into the world, Lavinia held him tight and prayed that the name George was the only thing the boy would ever inherit from the man upstairs. She didn't know then that by August, the Morley soil would be open to receive them both, one to a cell and one to a tiny, silent grave.